Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Jim Morrison, and today we have Joan Trice, founder and CEO of Allterra Group, and Anthony Blackburn, CEO of Apple Appraisal. We'll be talking about something all appraisers need, which is a succession plan. Joan, let's jump right in, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome, Tony. And this is a bit of a challenging topic, I'm sure, for you to discuss, since you lost your business partner recently.
Right.
Share with us what happened and what that set into motion for you as a business owner.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for having me here. This is a really important topic that I think not a lot of people really think about.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you having me here for this. So to give a little bit of background, Dennis Kearns was my business partner. To add a little bit to it, who's also my brother-in-law, good friend from high school. We met in high school. I introduced him to my sister and they ended up getting married. So there was a very, very close relationship there. Sometimes you do find in the appraisal industry here, we have a lot of family relationships in the appraisal industry here, but for an appraisal management company and the management of an appraisal management company, it's a little more rare. We are an appraisal management company, and Dennis came on board 15 years ago, something like that. He was a half partner, and the shock to the system is undescribable when you get a phone call when you don't expect it on a Sunday morning saying your business partner and brother-in-law suddenly died last night.
Right.
It's still, here we are in the middle of August, and this happened December 31st. It was sudden. He was at home. He was with his wife. It was painless, we think.
And a young man.
And a young man.
He young by my definition of young.
Yeah. And in the appraisal industry too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was 56.
Yeah.
And it was a cardiac event. And like I said, the initial shock was just huge and still lingers with me. We were and still are a family-run business. And so that had its own layers of complexity to it as well.
Did you have, as a company, a buy-sell agreement in place for these types of events, whether you have a partnership and one wants out, or they either get sick, or the worst case scenario, they pass away? Did you have such an agreement in place?
Yeah, we did.
Thank goodness.
It was more specifically about if one of the partners was to pass unexpectedly. And it was essentially, it was an agreement, but it included an insurance policy that paid off the spouse so that the spouse wouldn't be part of the ownership of the company. The ownership of the company would transfer over to the surviving partner. The spouse of the partner that passed would be paid off with the proceeds and not have to engage in litigation, or if there's no money in the company, or whatever the issue is, they're taken care of. Thank goodness we did that. We did that many years ago. And I know a lot of companies don't think about these things. That was a crucial part of our recovery. It really was.
Yeah, thank God you had that piece in place. So while you're dealing with the personal and emotional trauma, at least your business continuity plan was already established. So you didn't have that emotional pain to deal with.
Yeah, although that's a little separate from the way we had it set up. We had this insurance policy, we had this plan that nobody ever thought would be put into effect.
Right.
But that's a little bit different from our business continuity and disaster recovery plans. But we did have both of those, and both of those come into play. I mean, we think of disaster recovery and disaster recovery plans as
Tony, let's not get into those just quite yet. If you'll bear with me, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll dive into that topic when we return. So, Jim?
One of the easiest appraisal tools, the Cubicasa app, allows anyone, even a homeowner or agent with a smartphone, to generate an ANSI-aligned digital GLA with 5 minutes of scan. Moreover, it comes with high-fidelity detailed floor plan with interior walls, which are required for hybrid and desktop assignments. Appraisers love this app because they can also use it to complete traditional appraisals for complex properties with ease. The best part is your first scan is free. Sign up today at cubicasa.com.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Tony, where we left off, we were talking about disaster recovery plans, which are also mechanisms that every company needs to have in place. It sounds like you had one of those as well. Tell us about what that looked like.
Yeah, we did have a disaster recovery plan. Interesting for those that aren't in the AMC management, the management of an AMC or ownership of an AMC. It's something that a lot of our clients require as well. So we had one, but you think of it in terms of what happens when your building burns down, or there's a flood, or some other natural disaster or man-made disaster. But this was a little bit different type of disaster, but the concepts are still the same. We had to have people in place that would move into Dennis's position to carry on what he was doing. We had to, the next Monday, we did take a day off, but then the next working day, business still has to continue. There's people that depend on that, homeowners that depend on our job still being done, regardless of whatever disaster there is. So luckily we had some great people, and again, family members. Kat Perry, who is Dennis's daughter, they had worked so close together for many years, and she's a certified appraiser, and she just stepped right in and took over a lot of her father's responsibilities, literally just a couple of days after he passed.
But Tony, these are all things too that an appraisal firm should have in place. Maybe not as sophisticated on the disaster recovery, but I see the dog ate my homework excuse all the time. If I'm relying on my computer 100% to drive my business, I'm not going to have just one computer. I'm going to have redundant systems. I'm going to have two computers. I believe in redundancy. And when I do backups, I like backups of backups in two different sources, so that if one fails, the other, I'm just paranoid and sort of, it's a Murphy's Law, insurance policy, whatever can go wrong will. I know it's hard to think of every contingency plan needed, but
right, and absolutely, and literally, this is one of the last contingency plans that you think of. Right. But this was something that a former business partner of mine, she and I had this in place, and so when the ownership changed, when Dennis came on board, it was a natural for us to change to that. But at the time, we were an appraisal firm. And it's important when there's two or more people that are involved professionally, in running a business, whether it's an appraisal management company or any sort of a business or an appraisal firm or anything where there's value, you do need to plan for the worst. And, obviously the worst happened in this case. And we are just so thankful that we were able to, have the pieces in place that made that recovery just that much easier, because it did. Having the insurance policy to pay off the spouse was critical. And it goes a little bit further than that too, though. There comes the responsibility of each party that's in ownership or management of the company to have their own personal financial issues taken care of, having things like wills, having things like, a trust, especially if you have children, and real estate, having life insurance policies. Those things are all very, very important. Health insurance, I know there's people that go without health insurance. These things are all critical pieces to, when the worst does happen, to be able to recover in the easiest and fastest way possible.
I couldn't agree with you more. And Tony, let's take a quick commercial break and we will be right back.
Today's learner has a myriad of educational opportunities to choose from, both online and off. But for appraisers and professionals who rely upon appraisals, your high-quality, comprehensive valuation education resource should be the Appraisal Institute. The courses we offer are rigorously researched and largely developed by practicing appraisers using their real-world residential and commercial valuation experience. Go to appraisalinstitute.org/education for more information.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. And Tony, I think a lot of these risk management things that you put into place at your AMC also apply to just appraisal firms. What do you think about, because I do think the appraisal firms have eroded over time, and they used to be the training ground for bringing in fresh blood. And what are the advantages and disadvantages to being a sole practitioner versus having a partner?
Having, and I went from a sole practitioner to having a partner.
Right.
As we all know, as much as I love this industry, and I do, I'm passionate about this industry. I'm passionate about being an appraiser and helping my clients and helping people and helping homeowners and doing my job. I'm passionate about that. But as much as I had passion for it as a sole practitioner, it also becomes a grind. We, as appraisers, tend to, look at the past couple of years, we tend to take on more than we can do. It can become burdensome to some people. And it did for me. I had a huge burden. And when Dennis came on board as a partner, it really relieved a lot of things. I could take a vacation now.
Right.
I could walk across the hall and say, hey, I have a problem here. What would you do in this case? And he would do the same thing with me. And, it really became this is, in appraisal, we talk about this all the time, where two pieces apart are not as valuable as the two together. And that's really what it became. So it really was a great thing, but it also brought a lot of additional responsibilities, because now, instead of just being responsible for myself, now I'm responsible for the other half of my business that somebody else owns. And that's where the health insurance, the disaster recovery, the continuity plans, those types of things come into play, because it's not just you anymore. And even for a sole practitioner, there's still going to be the floods, the fires, the times when you get sick, all kinds of things that you really need to have a contingency plan. And as appraisers, we do tend to get a little bit compartmentalized. If we're an individual sole practitioner, we get to be a little, my joke is always, as appraisers, we work in our, sit in our underwear in our living room and wait for the fax to ring, and now wait for the emails to come in. And we don't get out enough, which we're always thinking production and getting those things done. But the things that can cause us the most problems tend to be put aside and taken care of later, like having a relationship with another appraiser that you trust, or a group of appraisers that you trust, that you can go to with issues, or when you do need to take time off, that somebody can take over your business a little bit and just to at least keep it going. Those sorts of things are really important. Have some sort of agreement with some of your compatriots, some of your professional associates that may not work for you or with you, but somebody that you trust that can help carry the load in those times of need, because that's important. And definitely getting things in writing is huge. And having
I
an
would think a
attorney,
non-compete or something with your fellow appraisers that you share this burden with, and it would be mutual. Yeah, you never plan on breaking your ankle and being not able to do field work for, say, 3 weeks. It would be great to call your friendly competitor with a non-compete who's not going to steal your business.
right?
It's just going to be waiting for you when you come back. And
and just as well, not only having somebody like that for you, but be somebody like that for somebody else.
absolutely. Yep.
And definitely have everything in writing. Pardon me. Have everything in writing and be prepared. That life continues to happen. These things will happen to you at some point.
Right.
They really do. And as much as we would like to think they don't, as much as I thought Dennis was always going to be there for me. It wasn't his choice, wasn't our choice. That's part of life. It
Right.
just happened. And it's so important to be prepared for these things, whether you're an AMC, a large national AMC, or a sole practitioner.
Right. Well, Tony, we appreciate you joining us today and sharing what was a painful experience, but you recovered as best you could because you had already all those plans in place. And I think that's something we want our audience to think about going
Right,
forward.
right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, thanks for sharing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks again, Joan and Anthony. That was a really insightful information, and I think all appraisers should take heed to that. If they don't have something like that in place, they need to get something in place. Thanks to our listeners for joining us, and thanks for our sponsors for helping us put these together. If you have a comment or would like to be included in a future Buzzcast, reach out at comments@appraisalbuzz.com. Thanks and have a great day.